Welcome to the Big Picture Retirement Show, where you'll learn what it really takes to have a successful retirement. With over 20 years of experience, your host, Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has seen it all and is here to help you achieve your retirement dreams. This is the Big Picture Retirement Show.
Once again, you're listening to the Big Picture Retirement Show. I'm your host, Rick Rivera. I want to thank all of you for tuning into today's show. If you have any questions about any of the topics that we talk about on the Big Picture Retirement Show, feel free to give us a call, toll-free, 800-700-1980. Again, our toll-free number is 800-700-1980. And keep in mind, if you're listening to the show and maybe there's a topic outside of what we're discussing today, feel free to give us a call directly, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding your retirement planning. Now, there may be some of you that are new listeners to the show, so briefly, what we like to cover each and every week on the show are topics that can help you enhance what it is that you've already been able to accomplish when it comes to your retirement planning by controlling the things that you can actually control, rather than us, trying to give you the next hottest stock tip that's going to make you $1 million tomorrow. What we try to do is actually give you strategies and tools that once they are immediately implemented, they will enhance exactly what it is that you're doing when it comes to the retirement planning process. And from a big picture, holistic approach. And what I mean by that is that some of the things that we share is things that you can do in order to maybe minimize the amount of taxes that you're currently paying. Things that you can do in order to maybe maximize the benefits that you're getting from your Social Security, or maximize your pensions. Strategies to even minimize the taxes on those things. Maybe ways that you can, enhance your investments by minimizing the fees or the commissions on those things. We talk about trust and will planning. We talk about long-term care and a variety of other topics each and every week. So if you're looking to get good information to make sure that when you're doing your planning, you're looking at it from a holistic approach and you want to make sure everything works together, you definitely want to tune in each and every week to the Big Picture Retirement Show. However, we do give our listeners the ability to call directly into the show, 800-700-1980, and you can even set up a 15-minute strategy call with me personally, Rick Rivera, and I can answer any questions you have as a result of the show, or maybe some topics that I didn't get a chance to cover. So with that being said, today what I want to do is I want to discuss inflation in retirement and how it can affect your retirement. We've also created a really nice brochure, very easy to read, and it's a quick read, easy to understand. And what I would like to do is offer it to the listeners listening to the show right now. If you care to get that brochure regarding inflation and how it affects your retirement and how to protect from that, you can give us a call toll free, and our staff will actually email that brochure to you directly. Again, our toll free number is 800-700-1980. You can also reach us on the web at safeguardinvestment.com. Again, our website address is safeguardinvestment.com. So let's jump right into it. Again, I'm your host, Rick Rivera. We're talking about how inflation and retirement and how it affects you. So here's the thing, folks, that we have to take into consideration. And I briefly talked about this on other shows. And those of you that have attended our workshops, I briefly talk about inflation and how it affects your retirement planning in the workshop as well. So to kind of get the topic started, here's the thing. When Social Security first came about, let's say somebody retired at 62 or 65, back then they were lucky to make it to 70. Inflation was not a huge concern as part of their income planning. Today, actuarially, the average 65-year-old has a good chance, maybe 75% chance of making it to age 88. So some people are living 20 in some cases 30 years into retirement now. So whatever income you had planned for yourself at 62 or 65, you may need incremental adjustments to be able to offset that income and give you raises over time. And unfortunately, when we meet with many people, they'll tell us that inflation planning has not been evaluated or reviewed or addressed in their planning process. Or sometimes they'll say, hey, Rick, you know what? I know Social Security, the government gives us an inflation adjustment in Social Security, or my pension has a COLA adjustment attached to it, so I really don't have to think about it. Here's the challenge, folks, and I want you to pay attention very closely. When it comes to inflation, whether your pension has a COLA adjustment or not, whether your Social Security gives you a raise each and every year or every other year, however they do it, obviously it's based on inflation. Here's what I want to point out to you. Inflation affects people differently. So many times, my partners and I, have individuals that come into our office and we'll ask them if inflation has been evaluated in their income planning. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, you know what, it has. And we'll say, great, what inflation rate are you using? And sometimes they'll say, well, the broker has it pegged to some sort of index. Maybe it's what the government is reporting. Maybe it's what the Wall Street Journal is reporting inflation is. And your Social Security obviously is being based upon whatever the government decides inflation is. And your COLA is going to be, your pension inflation rate, your COLA adjustments are going to be based on some sort of index. But here's the thing, folks. Let's say that number is 2% or 3%, whatever it is, whatever index they're tying it to. The challenge is that if they're doing that, they're lumping you in with everybody else. And like I just said, inflation affects people differently. Because let's say, for example, I drive 5 miles to go to work each day, and my partner has to drive 40. Inflation is definitely going to affect him differently than it does me, just on gas prices alone. Let's say I have a retiree that says, hey, Rick, you know what? When I retire, my wife and I, our goal is actually to travel. We want to do a lot of traveling in our retirement. Well, folks, travel costs may be rising at 5%. Somebody else might tell me, Rick, you know what? I'm really concerned about medical costs. I didn't quite inherit the best genes in the world, and I'm really worried about, healthcare costs, medical costs, things of that nature. Maybe that's rising at 7%. Somebody else might say, Rick, you know what? I had a wonderful career where I had the opportunity to do a lot of traveling, my wife and I, earlier on. And, we pretty much traveled all over the world. And quite frankly, when we retire, we don't plan on doing that much traveling. I mean, we really just want to focus more now on spending more time with the grandchildren. Maybe I'll play a little golf here and there. So depending on a person's goals, objectives, concerns, and a variety of other circumstances will determine what your inflation rate should be. So for someone to just give you random, peg your inflation rate to some random index that has nothing to do with you could potentially be doing you a disservice. And these are the things that we look at when it comes to that holistic planning approach. And these are the things that you have to look at for your particular situation so you don't get caught by surprise. Because so many times we'll see people retiring and they feel pretty good about themselves and things are going good. But in the later years of their retirement planning, they find out that, things are kind of tight because expenses have gone up. Healthcare costs have gone up. Because so many times I hear people say, well, Rick, you know what? As I get older, I'm not going to travel as much, or I'm not going to be able to do this as much, and expenses will actually go down. Well, that's not necessarily true because, expenses may be going down in some areas, but dramatically increasing in other areas, again, due to healthcare costs or long-term care costs and a variety of other things. So the scenario that I want to make sure everybody understands and make sure it gets addressed is how inflation is going to specifically affect you based upon your goals, your objectives. And how are you going to find that out? Well, there's 2 ways you can do that. One is you can give us a call and order the Inflation in Retirement Planning brochure that we'll email to you for free. It's going to give you good information. It's going to educate you on how it's going to affect your retirement planning and give you ideas and suggestions on how to protect yourself from that. You can give us a call toll-free 800-700-1980. Again, our toll-free number is 800-700-1980. The other thing that you can do is if you just want a pure second opinion, you can give us a call right now and our staff will set up a 15-minute strategy call with myself directly. I'll be happy to hop on the phone with you and just talk about your specific situation and then maybe give you some tidbits on what you can do to enhance your retirement planning so you don't get caught by surprise. So what I want to do is I want to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to continue this conversation on inflation and how it affects your retirement and how to, gear up and position yourself correctly. Again, if you have questions about any of the topics I'm talking about today, or maybe you have some topics that I'm not even covering today, maybe you have some topics outside of what we're discussing today, feel free to give us a call, toll-free 800-700-1980, or you can reach us on the web at safeguardinvestment.com. So again, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation.
You're listening to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. For more information about Rick and the Safeguard Investment Advisory Group team, go to safeguardinvestment.com. While you're there, you can also download educational retirement guides and sign up for an upcoming seminar. That's safeguardinvestment.com. Now, back to the podcast.
And we're back. Once again, you're listening to the Big Picture Retirement Show. I'm your host, Rick Rivera. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Again, if you have any questions or if you'd like to download our brochure on how to protect yourself from inflation in retirement and enhance your income planning, you can give us a call toll-free 800-700-1980, and the staff will go ahead and get that email to you, or you can just call me directly. If you want, they can even set up a 15-minute strategy call where I can talk with you directly and give you some tidbits that I think might help you out. So either way, if you care to take advantage of that, you just give us a quick call, 800-700-1980. Again, I'm Rick Rivera. You can also reach us on the web at safeguardinvestment.com. So let's go ahead and continue and jump right into it. And a common question that I do get, especially in the workshops and seminars that we conduct, is many times people will say, well, Rick, what actually causes inflation? And there's something called demand pull. And what that means is this is when consumers, people, are actually demanding more of a particular product or service, and the suppliers don't have enough of inventory to meet these demands, so to speak. So because of lack of inventory, they have to raise prices. There's also another side of the equation, which is called cost push, which basically just means that what happens is manufacturers might be running low on raw materials, and it's harder to find, and costs on raw materials rise because of it, and now prices have to move up. So at the end of the day, regardless of the scenario, whether it's increased demand, you're a retiree, you don't have, many of you might be living on a fixed income, or when you become retired, you'll be on, somewhat of a fixed income. So if others that are working or whoever, just for whatever reason, are creating more demand in a certain area, now all of a sudden your price starts to go up. Or because there's a raw material shortage, prices go up. Or think about it. It could even be, and again, this all ties in together, but to give you an example, let's say there's a hurricane and now all of a sudden there's a shortage in oranges or there's a shortage in coffee. Those prices are going to go up on your everyday items. So what can we do to offset inflation? We're going to need our investments to be able to keep up. And the only way they can keep up is make sure that we are being strategic. Now, the brochure that we have that we're offering today at no cost is going to briefly discuss these things. So what I'm discussing is what can I do to prepare for inflation in my retirement plan? Well, number one, avoid long-term fixed income investments. Fixed income investments, Things like corporate bonds, money markets, treasuries, they pay a specific amount. And if you own these investments for like 15, 20, 30 years, inflation may eventually outpace the return. Last thing you want to do is lock up your investments in a fixed income investment for a long period of time. Short period of time, sure, I get it, I understand. And there's a place for that. But in this stage of the game, where we're at interest rate wise in our environment, we definitely don't want to do that, not for a long period of time, because we know those rates aren't going to be able to keep up with the pace of inflation. The other thing that our brochure covers is, look for equity stocks that can pass through increased earnings. And what I mean by, passing through increased earnings is that during times of like high demand, companies can increase prices and positively impact earnings. So if they're increasing prices, sometimes that'll actually positively affect their earnings, and they can pass these earnings on to the investors. So we got to make sure that we're choosing companies that can actually do this. Some companies maybe not so much. So we have to understand that, where to distinguish between the two. The other thing that we think is going to be very important is also look for strategies to provide guaranteed income. So there are different products and different strategies that will allow you to at least get a guaranteed income regardless of what happens to market conditions that you can rely on. Because the last thing you want to do is, let's say you're living on, you're pulling out 5% of your investments to live on, and you're heavily invested in the market, and the market's down 10, and you still need your 5 to live on, because if the market's down 10, you can't exactly call the electric company, phone company, and say, hey, listen, can I put you off until the market rebounds? So you still got to make that draw. So the market's down 10 and you need 5, you're down 15. Going into the following year, you still need your 5 to live on, and who knows if did the market rebound or not? And if it doesn't, maybe you're now down 20 or more. So now this causes stress, causes anxiety. So there's a strategy to guarantee your core, your foundation, but still allow you to keep up with inflation, get a fair rate of return, and allow you to get incremental raises over time. Unfortunately, folks, there's not one investment that can do all these things. It requires a specific strategy, and it requires a multi-pronged approach. If you have questions and you want to know how it would work specifically in your particular situation, well, then just give us a call, toll free, 800-700-1980. We're happy to share these strategies with you. But folks, it takes you picking up the phone. Or if you want, you can download our brochure on inflation and retirement planning, and it'll talk about some of these strategies in general. And again, you just dial 800-700-1980, and the staff will be happy to send out that brochure to you. Now, again, if you're just tuning in, you are listening to the Big Picture Retirement Show. I'm your host, Rick Rivera. And the other thing I wanted to mention is spend wisely, of course. And what I mean by spend wisely is, if you're considering maybe a big purchase, I don't know, such as a new home or a car or anything like that, if you think it might be more expensive later on due to inflation, maybe now's a good time to make that purchase today rather than down the road. Something to consider. And of course, the big one that many people unfortunately procrastinate on is meet with your financial advisor on a regular basis to make sure that no stone is going unturned. You want to meet with somebody that is looking at things from that holistic approach, that's going to make sure that they're taking your taxes into consideration. Some of you listening to the show right now, maybe you work for Kaiser, maybe you work for the gas company, maybe you're a teacher, and you're like, Rick, you know what? I really want to know how to maximize these pensions. Some of you might be, well, Rick, I'm concerned about my pension because I'm under the windfall, and I know that's going to affect my Social Security somehow. So, I need to know how that's going to affect me. So when I do retire, I'm not caught by surprise. I want to learn how to maximize my investments. I'm concerned about long-term care or healthcare costs when I retire. I saw my mom or my dad or a family member go through it, and I don't want to be a burden on my children. Some of you might be, may have a special needs situation. and you need to maximize what you're going to leave to a specific child due to a special needs situation. If you want help with any of these things, or you want help or advice or just some input, or maybe just a second opinion, maybe you're working with a current advisor and you're just like, you know what? I would just like to get a second opinion. Some of you, you go to the doctor, he gives you some advice, he gives you his opinion, and then you go to another doctor to get a second opinion. Folks, you can't be afraid to do the same thing when it comes to your retirement planning. You don't want to get caught by surprise. So if you'd care to take advantage of that, I'm happy to offer you a phone consultation, and it'll cost you nothing and no obligation. Just call our staff right now, and we'll offer that to the first 10 callers that call the show right now. 800-700-1980. Again, our toll-free number is 800-700-1980. And if you'd like, we'll even send you that brochure that we've created. It's a white paper, but it's a colorful brochure. You can read it. It's very easy to read. It's in plain English. And it's going to talk about inflation and how it can affect your retirement. And it's going to give you some things to follow in order to help protect yourself from that. And make sure you plan accordingly. Because the last thing you want to happen is you're a year away from retirement or 2 years away from retirement and you find out you're behind the 8 ball. Or maybe you are already retired listening to the show. You're going to want to know, hey, what strategies can I implement now to make sure I stay ahead and make sure that I don't run into a situation where I could run out of money or things are going to be, super tight on me. I need an inflation plan in place to affect my specific needs and my specific situation, rather than my inflation plan being tied to some random index that may or may not have anything to do with my specific goals and objectives and all the rest of it. So once again, unfortunately, that brings us to a close of the show, but I want to thank all of you for listening each and every week. If you care to take advantage of that consultation, that 15-minute strategy call or a Zoom meeting, give us a call toll-free, 800-700-1980, and you can even talk to the staff, and they'll be happy to download that Inflation in Retirement brochure. Again, that's 800-700-1980. You can also reach us on the web at safeguardinvestment.com. Have a great weekend. I look forward to talking to you all next week.
Firm offers insurance services. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is a registered investment advisory firm. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC. This radio show is a paid placement.